after taking the course and using the materials, absolutely, it's something that everybody can learn and everybody should learn. And the course makes it completely accessible for all the students. They don't have any trouble learning these ideas. They benefit from it. And I can also say that going back to the idea of teaching in khutbahs, Sheikh Hamza actually worked with me to translate some of these ideas to teach it in a short sermon to people. And that has gone over very well too. So I can say that this course really gave me the tools to take these complicated ideas and to be able to teach it to adults and children and teenagers in a way that's easily accessible for everyone. The benefit of this curriculum for teenagers is it gives them a systematic approach to understand the deen and to address any question that comes after that, because it lays the foundation for why Islam is true. So anything else that comes into their minds, any question that pops up in their head, they will have a system of addressing it. SubhanAllah, there was actually, I gave the kids a final exam. And on the final exam, one young man, he asked me a question, and it was kind of out of the blue. It was a tough question. And I kind of stopped and I thought about it. And I said, this is the answer, but I need to think about why it's right. And then he looked at me and he said, oh, maybe that's a loaded question. And then I was like, yeah, that's what it is. And I actually I punched him in the face. I was like, you got it, man. This is like a teenager. But the systematic approach of the curriculum, it gave him the tools to solve his own problem. I was amazed after that. So that's what I would say this curriculum does, is it gives people a systematic approach to understand deen and a systematic approach to understand questions that come after. So by the end of the curriculum, when they're asking any question about Sharia or about evolution or about anything else, the answer just fits into place. At the end of the course, I actually asked them survey questions, and they felt great. They felt good. They felt like now they have a solid understanding of their deen. A lot of people have expressed the idea that before taking the course, they had some doubts about Islam. They weren't sure why they believed it. And afterwards, they just felt so solid in their iman that it's a beautiful feeling. It's kind of like, I hope for them that it was the same feeling that I had when I was a youngster in college. And I want to jump out of my skin when I learned these proofs. I mean, it just makes you feel elated. It makes you feel joyous that you can, know God in a certain sense. And I really felt that again when I was taking the course as a teacher, because these proofs in our deen are so strong, and it just solidifies a person's faith and it makes a person feel closer to God. Alhamdulillah. Something else that a lot of my students, I've taught this 2 times now. I taught it one time, it was integrated into my English class, into my English curriculum. And then I taught it as a standalone summer course. It just ended at the end of July, a few weeks ago. So my 10th graders in the English course, a lot of them told me, because we were actually studying this within a unit on feminism. And we're talking about what feminism is, because they go to college after 10th grade. So a lot of them told me that the biggest impact they had from the entire curriculum was the idea of the problem of evil, and how that really helped them understand that, and how everything that comes at a person in life, it's really something that proves God's existence. And it's also something that makes a person's iman stronger. So I think that in that class, that was a very powerful lesson, that newsflash lesson, and some of the other assignments that were associated with it. A lot of students mentioned that was a turning point for them. But I think overall, the biggest sense that I got from students was in the beginning, whenever you tell somebody, I'm going to prove that Islam is a fact to you, they're kind of hesitant. I was hesitant too. I said, that's a big claim. That's a huge claim. But then by the end of it, they're like, yeah, this is true. There's proofs for it. There's strong evidence for this. So you kind of have to believe it. SubhanAllah. So the first time I taught it to our students here in my school, this is a Hifz school. They memorize Quran here. And a lot of them, they believe, and they're memorizing the entire Quran. And that was actually something that I used for them to kind of goad them to take this seriously. As I said, you guys spend, upwards of 2 hours every single day memorizing this book. So how do you know that it's true? And then a lot of them, they would give me some arguments that were really simple, and I don't think they would hold up when they go to college. So it really brought all of that out. So long story short, by the end of the curriculum, a lot of them said, actually one student, she said, if you pray 5 times a day if you've memorized the whole Quran, if you know all this dini knowledge, you should still take this course. This is something that can benefit you. It's something that can solidify your faith. And I think that those sentiments were given across the board from some of the other students as well, that this is something that is just so essential and it addresses it head on. So at the same time, when my daughter asked me a question, and of course, this happens all the time because of the nature of where we live, and there's going to be questions, and that's a good thing. And as a matter of fact, I can say that just recently, she asked me some questions that were really tough. And as a parent, always feel scared for your kid's iman, no matter what, because that's the most precious thing that we have. At the same time, after she asked me the questions and I answered them, I said, alhamdulillah, this is a good thing, because these questions are how a person will build stronger iman. These questions are how a person's going to be able to solidify their faith. And if I, as a parent, know how to answer those in a positive way, it has such a huge impact. I mean, I think I was reading on Yaqeen Institute how this is one of the things that if a parent can handle a question from their child in a positive manner, has some of the most impact on whether or not a person is going to practice deen when they get older. So that's huge. After I took this course, I told everybody, you have to put your kids into this course in one way or another, in some form or fashion. Really, every student needs to learn this. I saw my cousin who lives in Lebanon, and he came for a visit just a couple of days ago. And I asked him, are your kids in English school? And he said, yes. I said, this is a course that your kids have to take. They're little, but when they get older, this is something that everybody has to take. Every parent needs to know this, because our kids, hopefully they trust us. And if they have that trusting relationship with us and we can answer these things, it has such a huge impact. I mean, I remember when I was a kid and sometimes we'd ask our folks questions and they couldn't really answer them. That left a lasting impact in the other direction when I was young. So being able to understand why we have faith, so that it conveys to our children that this is not just some family tradition. It's not just something that we do because we were born into it. It's not just something that we do because that's the way that it is, but because this is the truth and we believe in it and we want to spread this deen to everyone that we possibly can. That it leaves a huge mark on our children in a positive way, inshallah. The way that this curriculum deals with religion and science is extremely beneficial and clear to students. And it made things a lot more clear to me. I could say that was something that connection between Islam and science, I didn't understand that even when I took courses as a young man in college. That was not something that was just laid out in such a clear manner as it was until I took this course. The way that this course takes scientific knowledge and worldviews like materialism and brings that into the light so we can understand why Islam is different and why Islam is better. I haven't seen anything that compares to that. So this course takes the problems that are kind of often unspoken in our classes and in our communities, and it brings them to the foreground and it resolves them, alhamdulillah. I don't know what else to say beyond that. When I start teaching it, I always ask kids, so how do we know that Islam is true? And the number one answer that I get are these types of answers about, well, the scientific miracles in the Quran, et cetera, et cetera. But that doesn't do everything that you need to do. When you go into a college philosophy course and they say that belief in God on its own is irrational, and belief in prophets and miracles is irrational, and none of these things make sense. So one or two verses that indicate to you some kind of scientific miracle, they actually mean nothing. And when you're sitting in a course like that for an entire semester and you're hearing intense, well-constructed arguments like that, it's not going to help you when you're in college. But when you take the systematic approach and you start with, the argument from contingency and what we can all agree upon, and then you move on to, Quranic design argument. And then you talk about how miracles are possible. That was a big lesson for me, was that prophets, they don't call you to anything that is impossible to believe in, and how to address the question that every religion claims to have miracles. So why is your religion any different? Taking that systematic approach is so much more holistic. It's so much more cohesive. It makes so much more sense in the mind of anybody, adult, child, adolescent. It makes so much more sense than just saying there's some verse in the Quran that was something nobody could have predicted of. So now Islam is true. Even though that's part of the curriculum, we talk about that in the course. But after you lay the foundation, by the time you get to those proofs, you understand their actual significance. You understand why they're important, and why they actually, how they can fit into a larger mosaic of proofs for Islam that give a person a solid faith in their heart. The whole time I've ever been teaching, we've always told students, you can ask questions. But sometimes the answer doesn't really match up with the power of the question. Sometimes we don't have time. Like if you're in the middle of class and somebody's going to ask you a question about the problem of evil, how do you answer that in 1 minute? You can't. And I think just being honest with the students and telling them, okay, this is a huge question and we're going to get back to it. And when you do that, it's powerful. But when you do that after you've laid the foundation that the curriculum gives to students, it's on a whole different level, because now they can truly understand the answer because they've understood all of the prerequisites to understanding the answer. Sometimes students will ask a question and they're not ready for the answer. This curriculum prepares them to understand the answers. And that's what's so beautiful about it. I've been teaching now for almost 15 years. In the beginning, when I was teaching, I read any book that I could come across about teaching. I just devoured it. I would go to those in-service trainings, and a lot of the older teachers, they'd be kind of tired and they didn't really want to listen. I would be asking questions. I was really engaged up until a few years ago. A few years ago, if I'd ever pick up a book about teaching, like, okay, I kind of read this already. I got very bored. But when I took this course, I can say that I haven't felt excited about teaching and about learning for a long time before, as much as I was when I was taking this course. On Sundays, when we would have the meetings, the live meetings with Sheikh Hamza, I was always in a really good mood. You know, my wife and my daughter were like, you know, what's going on? Because I was really excited to go to those classes. So on the one hand, there was just that kind of revitalization of my passion for teaching when I took this course. That happened. On the other hand, the types of seeing the examples of the assignments and seeing how the different learning activities and how they could work, it was an example for me. Like, so I'll give you a story that in one of the lessons, there's this hot potato game. I was never into that stuff. I was like, you know, kids throwing a ball around the room. How's that going to help them learn? Like, I didn't like that gimmicky kind of thing. But then when we're doing the class, I was like, you know, it says to do it in here. I'm going to do it. I was amazed at how students, you know, just tossing the ball around, it fostered these responses that were actually really interesting. And I said, you know, subhanAllah, there's a lot of different activities that I could do that I haven't been, because I've kind of been on autopilot. I know students, they've told me the class is good. I've heard good things from parents, but taking this curriculum kind of shook me out of that complacency. And I think that it really improved my skills as a teacher overall. One thing that I thought when I saw the teacher training is, why would anybody want to take the course with me? They could just take it with Sheikh Hamza. You know, that's what they should do. But the fact is that we live in our local communities, and people want courses in their local communities. People want to have face-to-face. People want to be able to take the course with someone that they know. So any teacher who's on the fence, any school that's on the fence when it comes to this training, they have to do it. As a matter of fact, when I came back to my school, after taking that, I said, you know, this is something that really everybody needs to learn so that they can answer these questions to people. I know for a fact that I would not have taken this course if it wasn't for a donor as well. If a donor, a good brother, hadn't come forward and put that into our, made this possible, I wouldn't have taught these kids. It hasn't been a year since I've taken the class. I've taught it twice. I look forward to teaching it, inshallah, all the time. I'm going to go to a youth group in a couple weeks. And they said, "What's your topic?" I said, "It's going to be why Islam is true." Because it's the most important knowledge that anybody can possibly learn. There is nothing more important than this. As a matter of fact, I tell everybody, because I coach debate, the most important skills that I've ever taught to students are in debate. The most important knowledge I've ever taught to students is why Islam is true, hands down, in 15 years of teaching. So at every single level, people, they need to do this. They need to do this because every community, they need to have this type of teaching. Every Islamic school needs to have people who are trained in this to answer these questions and to teach this material. Everybody who's considering, maybe you already have it in your community, they should donate so that people can have this in other communities and they can benefit. The fact is that you can't get every child to sit in front of a computer and to take the class. So you have to have people who are within their circle of influence to be able to answer their questions, because this is absolutely crucial and necessary. And I should also say, because those words, they sound kind of harsh, it's something that's exhilarating. And it's something that gives a person, I don't know how to describe it. It makes them feel close to God. There's nothing else that you can say than that.